Porcelainu Kizaru has always been a top tier of One Piece ever since its introduction into the story. Ever since then, he has showed off some of the most impressive feats and abilities in the verse that even I still find people overlooking. For that, I decided to put him in the First Commander Gauntlet, where he will face every First Commander in a one-on-one, and we will see if he has what it takes to make his way up to the top of the ladder and clear the Gauntlet. What's up guys, my name is Vertics, and if you enjoy videos like this, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I put out quality content weekly that you won't want to miss. Now, two things I must do first is 1. Discuss how strong Kizaru is, and 2. Explain that guys like Whitebeard, Mihawk, and Kuzan are not first commanders. Whitebeard and Mihawk have both made it clear that they don't work under Rocks and Buggy, just alongside them. And Kuzan is stated to not follow Teach's every word, and Shiryu is the one that's actually considered the first in command since he's more trustworthy. Now that we have gotten that out of the way, let's get back to Kizaru, and now he has one of the greatest devil fruits in the verse. He can simply point and shoot lasers at his opponents that aren't to be overlooked, as they are able to injure the likes of Whitebeard and Marco. He could take it a step further when he kicks insanely powerful light blast at his opponents, and while we haven't seen him hit someone with this move, it's clear that the output of this attack is stronger than his lasers. He also can create a sword out of light that he used to overpower Rayleigh while clearly not trying. All the man was doing was swinging his sword around, and we know he is capable of far more. In Marineford, he doesn't get enough credit for not taking a single ounce of damage, and was trolling the entire time. When he fights Marco, all they really did was clash, and their next interaction would be when Marco gets caught in Sea Prism Stone Cuffs and hit with Kizaru's lasers. A feat that Kizaru displayed along with Akainu and Kuzan is when Whitebeard fired an attack at Marineford, and they blocked it using Advanced Armament Haki or Ryu, and later on would show that they can use Future Sight to morph their bodies to avoid attacks from characters we know can use Haki, and obviously they have to use Haki to hit them. Kizaru would also have the quick face-off with Whitebeard, where he dodged his attack and, like I stated earlier, damaged him with his laser. The last feat he has in the war is when the red-haired pirates pulled up, and this man, Beckman, became a fake demon, telling Kizaru, "Don't move," and pointing his little gun at him, and this man, Kizaru, trolls him and does exactly what Beckman told him not to do, and what is he doing? Just watching Kizaru fire a bunch of shots at Law's ship. I never understood how people used to use this as a feat for Beckman. This man was too scared to shoot at Kizaru here. Now, it would be a while till we see him again, but there is a statement that I have to bring up, where the Navy gets confirmation that Big Mom and Kaido have formed an alliance, and Kizaru immediately tried to get a big paycheck, asking Akainu if he should go take care of them. Now, yes, Akainu does say no, but it's only because of the unknown forces Wano possesses. He doesn't even mention Kaido or Big Mom as being a problem for Kizaru. During Egghead Island, he displayed why he is the fastest character in the entire verse, performing the greatest speed feats, such as easily blocking all of Snake Man Luffy's attacks, which Kaido needed to use Future Sight to avoid. His best speed feat, though, is blitzing all of Egghead Island just to give Luffy food. Not to mention, Luffy couldn't react to him while in Snake Man, a form that grants him insane speeds. And as for the fight against Gear 5 Luffy goes, well, thankfully it's clear to the majority of the community now that Kizaru was mentally nerfed. Some of you guys won't get an iota of how annoying it was to explain how Kizaru was clearly nerfed when Egghead was being released in the manga. We saw Kizaru tanking attacks from Luffy while being directly told he's holding back, saying he doesn't want to kill Vegapunk and crying once Vegapunk died. And yet there was people believing Kizaru was going all out here, even while also having things he can't destroy like Punk Records, forcing him to hold back even if he didn't want to. You guys gotta remember, we haven't even seen his full strength yet. He still has more to display, such as how he fights when locked in, and a very possible Logia awakening. Another thing that a lot of people don't mention is that Luffy has like the perfect ability to counter Kizaru with that the rest of the verse just don't have the luxury of. Whenever Kizaru is up for discussion, a decent amount of people want to use the ways Luffy countered Kizaru and act as if the rest of the verse can do the same thing when they literally can't. One of the abilities he showed against Gear 5 Luffy was cloning himself and having his own mini army of clones to use that, when used seriously, I imagine is a huge problem for any character to deal with, but the way that Luffy countered them is something that nobody else can do. Now, the attack he landed on Luffy and Snake Man was very effective. In fact, we see Luffy with bandages after Egghead, yet he didn't receive any attacks from the Gorosei. So the only attack that he would have needed to bandage up from would have been Kizaru's kick onto him in Snake Man. His attack potency and speed are insane, and his durability and endurance follow suit. I mean, Luffy was able to injure Kaido in base, and was struggling to deal serious damage onto Kizaru even in Gear 5, and genuinely failed to deal any in Snake Man. That man was not lying when he said his defense is perfect. Okay, so now that we have a clear understanding of how strong Kizaru is, it's now time to start the gauntlet. And I'm just gonna say it, guys like Beppo, Killer, and anyone on that level just isn't worth talking about. I don't think anyone really thinks they stood a chance, and they're just not relevant in the power scaling discussions. To be honest, the first man up to the battle barely is himself in Shiryu. The only reason I put him on here is because he is a potential matchup for a near end of series Zoro and was able to injure Garp on Hachinosu, but I use that term very loosely. The funniest part about this feat is it proves why Shiryu's Devil Fruit is completely useless. So it's supposed to let him turn invisible, yet Garp was able to see him attacking Kobe and stepped in front of him and then didn't punch him but slammed him into the ground, and Shiryu was bloodied and beaten up. So what is the point of his Devil Fruit? And if a one-handed slam is enough to put you into this state, and I get it's Garp, but you're supposed to be a near end of series Zoro matchup, so your endurance should be at least a little bit better. Just imagine what an attack from Kizaru would do to him. He can easily see Shiryu's attacks and blitz him before he can react, and all he would have to do is sit there and just point at him and shoot his lasers, and Shiryu is cooked. Or he can just hit him with the same attack he hit Snake Man Luffy with, and it's game over. Kizaru doesn't have to put any effort into this fight. He's going to come out on top 10 times out of 10. Up next is the first commander of the Big Mom Pirates, Charlotte Katakuri. Now, he is the poster boy for characters that have been power cliffed in One Piece, as the guy was struggling against Whole Cake Island Luffy. Not to mention the infamous hit count chart, which completely debunks anything a Katakuri fan will try to say to act as if he's still relevant in the power scaling discussions. Not only did Kizaru outpace Snake Man, but it was a tremendously faster and stronger Snake Man he did this to. Katakuri landed over 100 on-screen hits in on Luffy and couldn't put him down. Kizaru could just sit there, letting Katakuri attack him and tank each and every one of his hits and not be damaged in the slightest. Another fight where Kizaru blitzes and one-shots, advancing him further into the gauntlet. King the Wildfire is the next combatant to step up to Kizaru. We know that he has incredible durability when his flames are on, but we see how Zoro is able to get past this defense once he coats his attacks in Conqueror's Haki. Now, fairs, Kizaru doesn't possess Conqueror's Haki, but his attack potency makes up for it, and we saw during King's scuffle with Marco that he was still being damaged despite having his flames on, and Kizaru's most basic attacks can outdo this, and he has advanced Armament Haki, which is another form of durability negation, rendering his durability useless here. Against Zoro, we saw that once a fighter can damage King even with his flames on, he will tend to turn his flames off, which grants him great speeds, but drops his durability, and this mode will be a complete disadvantage to him against Kizaru for obvious reasons. Not to mention, King's strongest attack can be avoided, and we don't know the strength this attack possesses, but it's for sure nothing more than Luffy's, whom was struggling to damage Kizaru at times. His clones can just overwhelm him, but he doesn't even need to go that far. He doesn't even need to summon his light sword either. His hands and feet will be enough to get the job done. Greenbull no diff the man who had a week to recover and Queen by his side. And Marco overpowered him as well, which again, he had Queen's help in doing such. And Kizaru upscales from both of them, so once again an easy win for Kizaru as he advances further. Speaking of Marco, he is someone that we saw Kizaru clash against, and it was clear during Marineford that Kizaru was superior. Marco is someone who relies very heavy on his Devil Fruit to absorb attacks and regenerate for him. We know that he doesn't have a long time to fight before losing stamina, and without his Devil Fruit to regenerate hits for him, he is a free win for most people in the verse. We saw he was able to get physically overpowered by a Vice Admiral. Like, this is just absurd. And when he gets hit by Kizaru, he is pretty much done until he gets the cuffs off and can regenerate. I mean, if these lasers can damage Whitebeard, they're doing the same thing to Marco and much more. This is another fight that Kizaru doesn't need to use his more advanced abilities to win, as Marco is going to have a hard time hitting him, let alone dealing damage, and with his advanced Armament Haki alongside his faster than light speed attacks, he will be too much for Marco to handle. Another downside to Marco is he isn't hard to react to for top tiers, as Big Mom of all people snatched him out the air, so Kizaru wouldn't have any problems just sniping him mid-air and getting the job done like that. Give Kizaru another easy dub. Following Marco, Sabo is going to throw his hat in the ring. Unfortunately, he doesn't have many feats, and in fact, the feats he does have are some of the worst out of everyone on this list. The only reason he's relevant in the strength talks is that 1, he's Luffy's brother, and 2, he's the first commander of the Revolutionary Army. His best win is against Jesus Burgess, so that should tell you a lot. He did clash with Fujitora, but in Clash Piece, it doesn't really mean much, especially when Fujitora was massively holding back the entire arc. Even during the Reverie incident, the good men he was with had better feats than he did, and in fact, his time in the Reverie is only a downscale for him, as after getting hit with an arrow by Imu, he needed to get saved by Old Man Cobra, who was also hit with the same arrow. It's funny seeing people try to use this as a feat for Sabo when it's nothing but embarrassing and an anti-feat for the guy. His attacks were ineffective and he was saved by an Old Man Cobra and he had to run away. Against Kizaru, he has nothing going for him. Hell, even Shiryu damaged a top tier before he did, and Sabo cannot run away from Kizaru. He has no feats to prove he beats any opponent you put him up against, really. It's only narrative and what-if scaling. It's the same old story of Kizaru blitzes, one-shots, and advances further into the gauntlet. Roronoa Zoro now attempts to stop Kizaru from walking his way through this gauntlet. His attack potency is far stronger than anyone who Kizaru has faced on this gauntlet so far. In fact, after learning from Gaban he can use Advanced Conqueror's Haki, his feats we have to use so far are only to be slightly upscaled from. We know that he can get past defenses as high as Kaido's and King's once he uses ACOG, so for once Kizaru can't just let himself get hit here. You can also throw in his feat against Nejuro where they clashed, and both were sent back by the impact. However, Zoro did need to get thrown by Jinbei in order to achieve this. But as Elbaf continues, I imagine his usage of Advanced Conqueror's Haki will grow exponentially. Fortunately, Kizaru has some swordsmanship of his own to combat Zoro, and can use his clones to overwhelm him and put him on the defensive. Zoro also took his time in the fight with Lucci, and even when he landed a lethal attack, Lucci could still stand in place, and an attack like this will be a lot harder to land on Kizaru, and while it will affect him, it won't be as effective as it was on Lucci, and he'll still be able to fight. On top of this, Zoro can't react as fast as Snake Man can, and Kizaru reacted to every attack Luffy threw at him in that form, and blitzed him as well. Against King, he was struggling against his light beam-like attacks, literally asking, How can he block it? And against Kizaru's lasers, not only will he not be able to block them, he definitely won't be able to dodge them either. Kizaru also has ranged attacks like Yasakani no Magatama to use, while his clones fight Zoro in close quarters combat, which will end the fight pretty fast in my opinion. Remember that Kizaru has advanced armament haki to damage Zoro internally, adding on to his attacks that Zoro can't block or dodge. Sure, Zoro has great AP Kizaru will have to look out for, but he can counter and avoid his attacks in many ways. Meanwhile, Zoro is going to have an extremely hard time landing and avoiding attacks against Kizaru. On to the next matchup. Coming up next to the plate is the first in command of the red-haired pirates, Beckman. The only guy that relies off statements more than Mihawk is this guy right here. In fact, Beckman's only statements are being intelligent and being comparable to Shanks in strength. Now I think that this guy is pretty strong, don't get me wrong, but we saw that even with knowledge of who Beckman is and being held at gunpoint, Kizaru just didn't care about what he had to say or who he was, and when Kizaru fired his attack at Lost Ship, Beckman was just stargazing at Kizaru. I doubt his bullets are fast enough to tag Kizaru. If Snake Man can't even hit Kizaru, those bullets just stand no chance, and there's nothing at the moment that proves he could do anything to Kizaru without his little gun. I don't even know how he is going to react to him. We know Kizaru can endure attacks very well from top tiers and damage them. All Beckman has is his gun. Meanwhile, Kizaru can summon clones, fire nukes from his feet, make a sword. You guys get the point. Kizaru moves on to the final stage of the gauntlet. Kizaru has cleared every character he has went up against so far, but it's time to see if he can finish the job against the first hand of the Roger Pirates, Dark King Silver's Rayleigh. In his prime, we know that he was able to one-shot Summers on God Valley and help defeat him and the Holy Knights anytime they attempted to kidnap a young Shanks. And upskills from his old self who could frighten Blackbeard despite not having the strength to defeat him, and could stop Kizaru from killing Zoro back in Sabo. During his time sparring with Kizaru, he didn't do too well and was being pushed back by him with just his swordsmanship. Which is funny because Kizaru isn't even a swordsman, and Rayleigh is, yet Kizaru could still overwhelm Rayleigh with simple swordplay and could do far more. However, Rayleigh does have the best haki control out of everyone on this gauntlet, so that can play a factor on his end, especially when in his prime, but I still don't think it gives him the edge here. Kizaru's clones and heavier attacks will still be too much of a problem for Rayleigh, even in his prime. If Kizaru wants, he can have all his clones use advanced armament haki and have some of his clones swing at Kizaru with their sword, while the rest and him used ranged attacks. It's funny, I think of it like Madara asking the Kage if they want his clones to use Susanoo. That's just with Kizaru and his light clones and asking them, do you want these light clones to use advanced armament haki? Even if Rayleigh manages to tag Kizaru and damage him, he would still have to outdo the AP of Gear 5 Luffy, who couldn't deal any serious damage onto Kizaru, and he also doesn't have the abilities Luffy had to counter Kizaru with, which helped him out tremendously. I'm sorry to any Rayleigh fans watching this video, he's a cool guy and all, I like him, but without having top tier stats and an ability to counter Kizaru with, it's going to be insanely difficult to defeat him. Kizaru has some of the best and most underrated feats in the verse, and the best part is, he hasn't gone all out a single time yet. Just imagine what happens when he's using his abilities more seriously and a potential Logia awakening on top of that. It's just way too much for a first commander to handle, so I hope that you guys will see why even the very strongest pirates in the world are required to take on this guy, and even then, it still might not be enough. Well, that's it for you guys. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It helps with the algorithm and is very appreciated. Shout out to Tiberius for the thumbnail. Make sure to hit him up on Twitter, link in the description, as well as following my Twitter at Vertics_ for more of my takes. And without further ado, you guys can get out of here.